This time we are looking at number 5 of our little videos about building the railroad in the 1850s through this area. This time we look at Charles McCausland's mile or section. Charles McCausland came up from Maryland, and he had a crew of 62 Irish fellows to do the heavy lifting. And unlike the other contractors, McCausland did not move on when the job was finished. He, instead of living out at his shanty town with the guys, he lived in a hotel in Greensburg and met a local girl, Anna Weldy, and married her. She was the granddaughter of one of the original Weldys, Henry Weldy, who settled in Dutchtown. We're looking down now at, from the air, at the mile of track distance that McCausland and his 62 Irish built. This is Greensburg. That's Lynchfield down here. That's the road coming from 119, goes out and underneath the railroad at Rosetown, and Stone and Company is there now. This is Route 30. This time north is to the south, and the railroad is in the foreground. This is the railroad, and that yellow line is McCausland's mile of track distance that he and his men built. That's 119, that's 30 down there, and the Route 30 bypass. I'm one of those people that like maps. I think more maps the better. I do believe that oftentimes where things happened are as important as what happened. This is topography, just showing the topographical features in the mile that the railroad was going through. This is the railroad going out. The red section is the mile that McCausland's guys worked. These are the high areas, high area, high area, high. See, it shows the hills, and then between them are the lower areas that where they had to build fills. This is the Westmoreland Mall. This is Route 30, 119, Bouvard, Rosetown over here, Lynchfield. This is where the guys were living. This was McCausland's shanty town. This is the railroad they were building. They were putting a fill in, trestles up here to get the dirt up to track level. Jack's Run in the foreground, and this is where they were living. Not exactly what you would call exotic living quarters. These guys were only getting $1 a day, and only getting $1 a day, you might find it hard to believe that McCausland in the fall cut their wages down because the days were shorter, so he wasn't getting as much work out of them. He cut their wages down to... these are the guys coming back for lunch. McCausland did have a place where the guys could eat, and he had a cook to cook for them. And this is what the guys did when they had time on their hands. When it was a rainy day or when they were on strike, they wandered into Greensburg, and the people in Greensburg were not happy to see them coming, because this is the kind of trouble they often got into. Fortunately, it only happened once that someone actually got killed in one of the bars in Greensburg, the guys from the railroad. Here you see two of the guys going at it, and a couple of guys already on the floor. Homer Simpson back here tending bar. This is a map from the 1850s. One of the things you notice is how few roads there were then. I mean, things were near as built up. This green section is the mile McCausland's guys were building. And William Russell was unfortunate enough to have his farm right there. And he had his farm bisected by the railroad and ended up suing the railroad for damages. He had a local surveyor, George Meckling, survey his property and the way it had been cut in half. He owned this land up here, this land down here. And after the railroad was done, it had a great big railroad running through it with 2 fills and a cut the guys built. often the people who sued the railroad didn't end up as well off as the people who just took the offer that the railroad originally gave them. The courts tended to favor the railroad at that time. This is what most people think of when they think of building a railroad. I mean, this is what they think the guys were doing. But this was actually the easy stuff. The hard stuff was moving the dirt, because they did not have the kind of dirt moving equipment that we think of, like the big shovels and heavy earth moving equipment. They just didn't have any of that stuff. They had horses with carts and a lot of Irish guys with good backs and picks and shovels and sometimes dynamite. But they worked for several years before they could put tracks down. And this was the end of it. They didn't get tracked down to the 1850s, late 1852. And they started in 1850. And this is the end of it for this one. And we will see you again. This is where we were working. And we'll say so long and see you again next time. Bye.